2 o'clock, I think, hence we good to start. First of all, thank you for joining us in this early afternoon for a very practical workshop on how GovStack as a framework can and should be deployed for future-proof human-centric digital services based on the examples from Kenya. First of all, I would like to congratulate everybody because this workshop takes place at the same time as our president is debating on AI. So everybody's here. I'm very proud that in this sharp competition with our president, you actually chose our workshop as your point of interest. I'm actually going to speak very little because I have 3 very good speakers following me in just a second. My name is Marika. I'm the lead for GovStack initiative on behalf of Estonia, and I'm just going to walk you very briefly through why we think GovStack is relevant, why we are presenting it currently in this format of a practical workshop. It's a global initiative which was set up approximately 5 years ago by Estonian government, German government, International Telecommunication Union, and the US-based think tank Dial. And it's not pure coincidence that exactly those partners came together for building a framework with the essential aim of helping governments digitize their services without reinventing the wheel every single time. GovStack was set up as a framework, and it today is, with the fundamental aim of helping governments building future-proof digital services using its building block approach. The building blocks are essentially interoperable, reusable modular components such as digital identity, data exchange, payments, registries, that governments should, could, and can combine over and over again for building services which are basically interoperable in nature and help to literally put into practice the future digital governments that truly serve the needs of their end users. It might sound terribly technical, terribly software and enterprise architecture deep dive kind of exercise. But what I love about GovStack is that it's actually very practical in nature. It has already been deployed in a large number of countries to a different level of modularity, let's put it that way. But today's workshop is all about showcasing how GovStack was put in place in Kenya for building a number of, I would say, really forward-looking, very practical digital services. GovStack partners such as Germany and ITU definitely have had much wider and long-term experience in implementing the framework. Now Estonia, in particular, SDEV as the agency, is taking its steps also to implement GovStack methodology and framework in its digital initiatives all over the world. But Kenya is today the focal point to serve to illustrate that how this framework works in practice, what are the core building blocks, how they interact, and above all, what it means like to go design and implement the digital service while taking into consideration the existing legacy systems, the very diverse and complex regulatory and policy guidelines in place. Because no country hardly ever starts from the scratch. Obviously, there are systems in place, there are frameworks in place, there are legacy systems in place that we need to interact and take into consideration. So that's a very brief introduction into GovStack, which is not just a back-end architecture, but a very practical front-end design tool. It's fundamentally very, very democratic in nature from the perspective that GovStack is not a software product, hence we are not representing the business interest of any global vendors. And that has really helped us to build inroads into governments all over the world as a tool for them to build services which make sense. All in all, I'm not going to go any further details because I believe that the theoretical part is not that relevant here today, as this is a practical workshop. We can all interact later as we go during the day if you want to have a more deeper insights what the framework is all about. But I'm very, very excited now to pass the floor to our first speaker, Lawrence Berry, who will walk us through the actual design layer from the principles of exploring what are the fundamental requirements before actual implementation will take place. Lawrence is from UK, a very good opportunity to showcase that GovStack is not all about the Estonian experts. From UK, he is the co-lead of a working group dealing with those items on a daily basis. And he's also head of the Comma International, so a practitioner in a live format. So, without further ado, I will stop it here. Lawrence will do his walkthrough, and then I very much encourage that you ask questions, express your opinions if you agree or disagree, because this is a workshop after all, not just talking heads at least. All right, Joe. Lawrence, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Marika. Okay, so before I introduce myself, we're gonna talk now about design in GovStack. So how can GovStack be used to kickstart the design of public services? I have a background in coding, user-centered design, digital government. I started out in a company called FutureGov, which was at the forefront of using technology and service design in local government in the UK. And I spent 7 years in the government digital service in the UK on different platform products like procurement platforms, identity, or standards and assurance. I was on an international team in the UK, so I was so lucky to be able to spend time with people in different digital agencies around the world, and I started to spot, obviously, similarities between a lot of our challenges, and we're all solving them in these different silos. So for the past 2.5 years, I decided to go it on my own, and I have, with the aim of continuing to bring people together and share knowledge between different digital agencies in lots of kind of informal and formal ways, I suppose. But let's talk about design in GovStack. So I co-lead the UX UI working group in GovStack, which is more than 50, maybe we're more than near 100 people in our Slack channel, where we're all from different digital agencies around the world, sharing experiences on patterns for what services look like. And I'm going to use patterns as a way to frame this conversation today. And after the talk, we'll come down to the tables and we can continue the discussion. So yeah, let's recap what GovStack is. Marika already covered quite a lot of this, so I'm just going to point out that GovStack provides specifications for this modular open source building blocks. It doesn't provide necessarily the tech. There's tech examples of implementations, and there's a marketplace. But it's kind of a neutral home for specifications and a place for us to collaborate, which is also why it's a really good space for the design working group. We needed a neutral space where we could all come together. It's not owned necessarily by a specific government or a specific consultancy or something like that. But I'll stand out the way a little bit, but here you can see the concept of a stack, I suppose. There's the kind of the base layers that you need for government. You need to obviously host things somewhere. You have foundational building blocks, and then you have enablers like the marketplace where you can find people who can provide those building blocks. And then there's things like the data exchange layer and things like that, which is a little like Crossroad, I suppose, you might be familiar with. So if I take this out of the stack and I just break out the blocks, it might look something like this. But having building blocks doesn't necessarily equal a good user experience or a good service. So one of the first things we did in our working group, and this is probably going back a couple of years now, is develop a kind of service design good practice guideline for how we deliver work within GovStack, but also how, as a kind of resource to nudge people who are implementing GovStack building blocks to think about user-centered design, think about accessibility and inclusion, providing consistent services across government, and making good technical choices. We also felt that we kind of needed building codes for this modular design, so shared ways of assembling and delivering using these building blocks. So here you can see a user flow. It's the apply for a construction service. You can't see the detail. It's very, it's quite a short-looking service, but I've made the image very small. But as you go through, you can see this is kind of a pattern that could be reused for other application journeys. So it's an apply pattern. But this pattern is made up of sub-patterns. So we've got find, register, give consent, pay, make a payment, notification. These are all what we call patterns. And we spent a lot of time trying to think, is this a sub-pattern? Is this a higher level pattern? In the end, it's all just patterns that can be combined, and I'll show you an example in a minute. But the concept here is to give people a starting point when you're designing, say, an application journey. You're not starting from scratch, and we can already show, okay, here's how all the building blocks are going to connect together. It's a user journey. This bookshelf is not just for show. I actually have a book on it, and it's huge. So I don't know if anyone's seen this book. Do raise your hand if you've seen it before. It's called A Pattern Language, and it's by a group of people, but written by Christopher Alexander back in the 70s. And it's 250 design patterns, or architectural design patterns, and it ranges from the very high level. So if we look here, mosaic of subcultures. How do you design a city that can support a mosaic of subcultures? Then as you walk through the book, you've got kind of middle level patterns. So how do you design a space where people feel comfortable sleeping in public, if that's a need? And then down, like I said, the minutiae, paving with cracks between the stones. So it really gets into the minutiae of a design pattern. And at the end of each pattern, there's this paragraph which just shows how all of the patterns come together to create what you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to design an adventure playground, you might need to look at sunny place. You might need to look at bike paths and racks and a sitting wall. So all of the numbers there just reference a pattern in this book. So come and have a look at this. I'd love to share that with people. But I think it's worth noting, when I bought this book, I was hoping for loads of architectural diagrams because I thought it would make a lovely coffee table piece. But actually, it is more of a language. It's describing the considerations when you're designing a city or a house or a door frame. It's everything you need to consider. But the book proves that this is not new thinking about design patterns. Even back in 2015, which is a decade ago, the head of design in the UK government wrote a blog post about how we can embrace and use patterns to stop repeating the same things in government. My old company, FutureGov, worked with Essex County Council in the UK and developed a service pattern library. So this is just, they documented 147 steps that happen in different services. So you can browse apply services. Here are the steps that happen. Very simple. And even now we're seeing in the private sector in the UK, so BT and EE, which is a big telecommunications company in the UK, is looking at patterns to try and bring consistency to their services. And they really need it, I think. And in the central government, the Ministry of Justice is actively working on how can we quickly document patterns. So what's a standard for documenting a pattern? And they're running a lot of spotting sessions. And we're working with them and TPX, hopefully, to standardize our approach to spotting and defining patterns. You could imagine maybe if we're all following a similar standard, then we can produce some kind of digital public good, some registry that is a tool for everybody, because the reason I came to GovStack to try and push this, or or explore this opportunity is that it's a neutral space away from a specific owner, something where it could live. Okay, and in the Service Design in Government conference back in 2018 in Glasgow, Kay Dale and Ignacia Orellana ran a workshop, international workshop, to define what is a principle for a service pattern. And I want to focus on number 4, which is create in a collaborative way and provide a common language, which I think really resonates with what we're trying to do at GovStack, and through kind of a working group of people volunteering their time from organizations to feed into these service patterns, or at least the concept. So, as you can see, people have been thinking about this for a decade now. So where are the patterns? And I think I've been asking myself that every day. So where are the patterns? How can we actually use this? Because it's a lovely concept, but we need to see it in use. But let's have a little look at I'm jumping ahead, the anatomy of a service pattern. So they're reusable parts of a service that can be pieced together to build an end-user journey. So they act like a template, for example. And I recently saw a demonstration from Italy, the service design team in Italy who are building the IO app. They support digital services for different municipalities around the whole country. So what they're seeing is they're putting the same service online over and over and over. So they've managed to define a set, I think, 80 templates for services that basically follow the same journey. So I'd love to speak to them more and find out what their pattern spotting process is and what we can learn from them. But it is happening. So with how are we thinking about service patterns? Well, at the top level, we have an end-to-end service. For example, apply for a business license, pay for parking fees, or apply for the construction permit, which was our use case. The layer that we're most focused on, though, is the service pattern layer. It's fine, check, ask for information. And each of these patterns are made up of steps. Not necessarily UI, but considerations and things to think about. And the things I put on your table are examples of what a step might look like. So they're quite visual. They look like a UI. They look like a mobile interface, but it's not. Just think about it as a considerations in that journey. So some of them have QR codes. They take you to the first draft proof of concept of the documentation, so if you're implementing it. And then the next layer, it would be great if you look at a step, for example, conversational UI or understanding requirements, and you can see which building blocks or which specifications you might need to reference. So how could you use service patterns right before you even move to the design phase? It might be part of exploring the policy. It's how can we use these tools to create proposals before even procurement and get feedback on them early? I want to show you, I prefer to show work in progress than something super polished. So this is something that we're working on in the working group at the moment, and it's open for feedback. So I'll give a link to our newsletter, and you can jump into this file and add comments. But service catalog, every government is either working or has a service catalog. So we decided to start there. It's the beginning of any journey with government. So in this service catalog, you can see it kind of breaks into two. Our guidance or our documentation is split into two. We've got pattern guidance, and then we've got a kind of appendix of useful templates and things that we've shared with each other. An example here, you can see user flows, but you can also see enablers. So before you implement a service catalog, you might need a service registry. You need to know what services you have in government. So we've provided a list of here's the data that you might want to collect through a survey from all of your staff or from across your organization. So at least you can find out what services you have. And these are all things that people have done. It's not theoretical. Also, you can see here, proposed different taxonomies, because it's something that every team who does this thinks about. Okay, do we need to order it by life events or by service type or by ministry? Or do we need a way to jump between all of them? That's your decision, but there are templates there that might help speed that up. Okay, so service patterns can be a tool for organizations. I already talked about you can use these as part of your creating proposals, getting feedback, or drafting tenders, for example. You can point to examples of what a service might look like. We don't think you would then build and implement it as is. It's just a starting point to get to the research stage really quickly, so you can put it in front of real humans. I recently met with the Japan Digital Service, and we talked about service patterns, among other things, and they had a very inspiring and intentionally designed office, which I thought was very cool. It has this kind of end-to-end wall of library that divides the desk area from the kind of creative space, or where they might run events. So it was full of architectural books, design books, art books, so it kind of made you think a bit more abstractly, which was great. But yeah, I met with Hashi-san here on the right, and he talked me through how they're using service patterns practically in their organization. So they have an assurance process. When a department delivers a service, the central agency assures that service. And as they're doing that, something they're looking out for is patterns. What is being repeated across every service that they're looking for? And they just document that into a kind of knowledge hub. They're using Notion. When they come to design an internal service within the digital agency, they then use that as a reference and they build off that. So they kind of test it themselves. And their ambition is then to apply this to a whole sector of government. So for example, looking at a healthcare system, how can they rapidly improve consistency of the user experience across healthcare as they look to digitize? I'll share it on LinkedIn, but there's a blog post about that, and they're thinking about a system of systems. So they see design patterns as part of that system. And I think it's kind of points to how designers are now thinking a bit more abstractly, less about specifically a user interface and more about the whole system as a whole. I'll quickly show you some examples of how we could practically use patterns. So we're seeing it pop up a lot in design systems. Here's the gov.uk one, but also Ministry of Justice, the Home Office in the UK. All of the different departments are repeating themselves on service patterns, which is not the point of service patterns. So we're really hoping that maybe through GovStack, it could be a place people can kind of pull their information and their learning. It could be used as a backbone for a service blueprint. So obviously, you might have experience doing as-is journey maps, thinking about 2B journey maps of a service. So imagine you're mapping the as-is service. You can pull out, okay, here are relevant steps that match what happens already. So these cards become useful kind of prompts, I suppose. All very nice, but we want to get people prototyping really easily and quickly, knowing that there's specifications that back up their designs. So here's an example of using Figma as a prototyping tool. So we've pulled those patterns into Figma, and you can really enable someone to create a quick wireframe flow, get feedback from their team or from suppliers, and then test it with users easily by turning it into a mid-fidelity prototype. So as you see, each of these patterns has a low fidelity and a mid fidelity. And using something like Figma means you can quickly link them up, press play, and put that in front of somebody. It looks like a real thing. So here you can see just flipping it into higher fidelity, and then you can jump in and change the content. And this is being used right now for the second time with the Women in GovTech Challenge. There's 100 incredible women in part of this challenge. And yeah, we've been actively using this as one of the tools to help with prototyping services quickly. Okay, I have a video, but it's very quick, so I'm going to give a little intro to it, so in case I can't keep up. So I'm just going to show you an example of our sandbox environment, and that just shows walking through a service. What does that look like, and which building blocks are being activated? Okay, so if you go to govstack.global, you can get to this page, and up in our offerings, you can jump down to the GovTest. And here you can go to the use case simulation. So this is a kind of an example of a service in the center, and then on the right, it's showing which building blocks are being accessed throughout. Don't worry too much about what this service is. It's unconditional social cash transfer program. But as you click these little prompts, you can find out what's happening in that service. Now you can see it's accessing identity, information mediator, which is like the crossroad layer. So now we're looking from a user's perspective, a citizen's perspective. We're checking our eligibility, it's pulling information from our register, and we can access things from the payment building block as well. I think I'm actually running ahead. There we go. If we want to change our bank information, it's accessing that building block. The workflow building block is what works out where to send people throughout a user journey. But everybody's talking about AI. What does service design mean in this kind of, in a future AI-enabled ecosystem of building blocks? So we have the infrastructure that underpins government services. We have the building blocks. What does service design mean? Is there any point looking at service patterns? Can ChatGPT already create a set of useful service patterns? Maybe. So I've been thinking about this, but this is less me talking to you, more prompting the questions. So after this talk, I'd love to speak to people about what they're learning, where I can read more, what we can share in the open. So at the first level of getting a bit smarter, obviously we can use patterns as a service design tool. Perhaps it's something that can feed into low-code platforms. I've seen there's suppliers here like Liquio who build these kinds of low-code platforms. I was involved in this student challenge recently through Open Group, and there were 11 student teams working on different briefs. One of the briefs was GovBuild. What would a GovBuilder look like with the technology that's emerging right now? So their challenge was to look at stacks like India Stack or GovStack, look at patterns as well, and start to think about how does innovative technology help us build services more easily. So this doesn't look too fancy, but at the moment, I've typed into this tool, apply for a juggling license. I want to start licensing juggling in my country because it's very dangerous. So it proposes a set of data requirements you might gather. Interesting. So applicant name, okay. What type of items do you juggle? Do you have insurance? Where are you going to juggle those items? Are you going to juggle books? So I think this is interesting. It's kind of defining requirements. And what you can also see is it's got a tab for pages and components. So it can look at the patterns, look at this potential pattern registry or library and say, okay, here are some existing patterns you might use. So you can very quickly get to a prototype or a live service perhaps. And you could imagine this being a drafting tool. I think the way design is changing is we're still going to be thinking about service design. I've talked a lot about UI, and I think different suppliers are probably going to be providing these tools. So I think as designers, we're probably going to start thinking, taking a more kind of API-led approach. Let me go back a bit. So we won't necessarily know how citizens are going to be interacting with our government services. They might be going through a voice assistant, they might be going through a third-party app not provided by the government, or they could go through the government website. But let's imagine we're in a near future where maybe the website isn't the main way people interact with government. So what are we actually thinking here? Perhaps service patterns play a part in this kind of registry concept, which the workflow can call from and decide how to serve that service to a citizen. Like I said, service patterns, they might just be considerations, steps or rules for delivering a service. People need to know what documents they require ahead of time. They need to know where to get those documents or things like that. So those are the rules that any interface will need to know. But let's bring it back to the slide at the start. So I showed you this slide, and I think there's a lot of talk about can we build an AI chatbot instead of a service portal. I think from talking to people in the working group, it's a bit of a jump if you don't have the basic infrastructure in place. So we're not going to replace, I think, websites tomorrow. I think you still need to have registries, standards, and I'm hoping, or we're exploring the idea of service patterns as kind of critical enabler to that ecosystem. So if you want to work with us or talk to us more about service patterns, I've set up a little group called the Service Pattern Unit. So it's me, Betty Mwema from Kenya, but she's working in the UK government now, and Stefan Draskic from Slovenia, who's now in Berlin. So there's 3 of us kind of having lots of interviews with people and publishing that in regular blogs at the moment. And like I said, we're working in the open. So if any of this is interesting to you, you want to keep the discussion going, you can join the working group. We're very open. We have a Slack channel. We have a mailing list where we talk about what we've learned and what we're working on, and we invite people to come to workshops and things like that, or you can get in touch with me directly. This QR code, which is kind of in shadow, takes you to the page to join the working group if that's interesting to you. Cool. And actually, I should probably mention what I've put on the table. I've just put examples of materials that we used in a workshop recently where we were designing an end-to-end service and getting feedback on, okay, what does the guidance, how useful is the guidance that we've created? So what you'll see if you follow those QR codes takes you to our kind of proof of concept. So I really need to get down and get the iteration 2 published onto the GovStack documentation. But now I'll pass, actually I think we might have a minute or so for any quick questions, but we're going to have more space at the end for a discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lawrence. As Lawrence said, we might have a very brief opportunity to ask questions at the moment, while we have a more longer slot at the end of the workshop for deeper insights. But the question, are there any volunteers from the audience? Obviously not. Oh, yes, Andres, of course. Mike is on your way.
Thanks. Can you also use the... sorry.
It works.
So first, thanks for the very informative insight to your working group. But my question is actually around the service portfolio. So to what extent do you think those principles can be also applied to service portfolio? I mean, instead of focusing on a single service, but to rather focus on the portfolio of services.
I was talking to a designer working in the Scottish government, and they're looking at, okay, so we know there's different patterns, apply, for example. Can we put buckets of services together and build them once? And I think maybe this touches on it, maybe not, but they've been looking at building a set of services that apply for, that they just have to do small tweaks. So that's where they're looking at creating patterns to apply it to try and digitize as many services as possible in the Scottish government. But I don't know if when you're talking about portfolio, you're thinking more about the building blocks of government, like payment or...
I'm actually thinking more about getting rid of the services at all.
Yeah. We were having a good chat yesterday. I should have mentioned it in this talk, actually. But when we're talking about standards, so say we looked at that prototype for a service builder that the students built. They worked on that in 6 weeks, which is incredible. And yeah, I'll post a link to their project. What were we saying? Yeah, yesterday we were saying, so we can rapidly digitize services now. We can put paper forms online. But that's not really what service design is about. It's about questioning, should that form exist? And it's like questioning the questions that you're asking. So are they necessary? So if we're automating putting government services online through AI tools, you raised a great question yesterday, so I just want to highlight that. But should our tools question the need for each service as well? So can they apply the service standard to their implementation process and then highlight where you might not align to the service standard? That might be interesting because I know, for example, people in some governments are looking at can they put 20,000 PDF forms online? Because there's never going to be money to do a proper design process on each of those forms and make them into services. So can they combine the AI with the service builder that they have to quickly get those online? But that's a great idea. We should talk more about that, yeah. publicly. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. I now take the opportunity to welcome Taavi on the stage to talk about a bit more technical level on building a blueprint for seamless data exchange, as this is one of the most, let's say, bear in mind that this is yours, yes, you need to push the buttons. This is one of the most foundational building blocks that often the country's journey with GovStack begins, because obviously without having a seamless, interoperable data exchange layer, not too much can be built on top, even if the super sexy digital services are usually the end product of the journey, what governments are really looking forward to building. And I was particularly happy that Lawrence underlined in his talk that how we actually think about services today or in the coming years is fundamentally different from just launching an app or putting a form online instead of having it on paper. But this all can only be tackled upon once we have the core foundational building blocks, such as data exchange, in place. And I'm very happy that we have actually Taavi, who works for an Estonian tech giant called Cybernetica, which has extensive experience in deploying X-Road all over the world in very different and diverse country-specific environments. So Taavi will now walk us through on what it's looked like in case of Kenya and what were the interesting aspects of that journey. So the floor is yours, Taavi.
Thank you, Marika. Data exchange, doesn't it sound boring? It's not, because it's an enabler for exciting things. Exciting things for end users, like citizens and businesses that can have nice services. Exciting things for governing authorities who will have good governance tools for the interoperability and data exchange. We see how these technical tools help to deliver this excitement. And we also see that how this technical implementation compares to the physical world, like to find out that the principles that we follow in technology are basically the same in both cases, in physical and in the digital ecosystem. In both cases, you need governance, you need institutions, you need to keep eye on citizen rights, but we go into it. So what problem are we solving? Governments are big networks of entities. They are not like a single house that has a lot of government official in it and a lot of data that they are working on. Often we see that government is made of small kingdoms, like ministries, that have their own structure of agencies. So this is the organizational complexity. But why governments exist? They exist to serve citizens. And when citizens have to deal with the government, they have hard times of understanding what is the structure of all these agencies and kingdoms, which door to open, where to get this service. So in order to provide a good service to the citizens, the government entities need to collaborate. They need to talk to each other in order to provide what we call integrated public service. So integration here means that, that data it moves seamlessly in order to serve citizen. And citizen doesn't have to know from which agency, from which service it can ask for some data. So this is a problem that we are facing. And there is a solution for that, that for policymakers, they call it, we need to implement the whole of government approach. We need to implement the whole of society approach. So in Kenyan case, they say that they want one government approach. But in the end of the day, it means the same thing. Government organizations must collaborate using the data exchange tools in order to provide seamless services. So, what are the benefits? Why we are doing this? So, I would bring out 4 of them. It's obvious that all this exercise, not exercise, it's actually happening in practice. It's about efficiency. Like this is like everybody understands. And if you happen to be in the Trembita session just before this one, they brought out these efficiency figures. During the 5 years that Trembita, which is a secure data exchange platform in Ukraine, has operated, they calculate that they have saved 1 billion euros. Remarkable. Yeah. So that's clearly something. They also brought out time savings. They brought out how much CO2 they released less because of using digital tools. So very big numbers. So efficiency is definitely one thing. Another thing is accountability. In this seamless data exchange, you need to make sure that all parties that participate are accountable for the actions. And to be accountable, it means that you must be able to validate that all the parties are following the legislation, they are following, doing what they should do and not do anything else. So it requires governance. And in case of governance, what we are talking about, what are we governing here? So we are governing the scenario where government data is in the transit. It moves between the agencies. So we are governing who are the participants of this, like government agencies, maybe even private sector agencies, organizations. We are governing the systems that are part of this data exchange. We are governing the services that are used to exchange data. And the most importantly, we are governing the transactions that take place. So, and just to bring out the complexity of this exercise, of this governance exercise, there are like thousands of government entities, usually in countries that exchange data. There are maybe 10 times more services. So we are talking about tens of thousands of services, and then there are billions of transactions. Like you saw in Ukraine, this year there will be more than 13 billion transactions over the data exchange layer. So how do you govern all this? You need clearly a very robust approach, and this is where the data exchange platform comes into the picture. So you need a uniform approach to security. You need a uniform approach to all this governance in order to deliver these exciting citizen services. Okay, so efficiency, governance. Third thing is resiliency. That was also discussed today. So if data is exchanged, then it is in danger because it can be attacked. There can be cyber attacks, and there are. And imagine you have like 30 billion of these data exchange acts from sender to receiver, and each of them can be attacked. So you need a very resilient system. You need a good architecture. And this is where X-Road excels, which we are going to discuss here, because this was the software that we used as an example in Kenya POC of GovStack. So resiliency is important. No single point of failure, because it will be attacked immediately. Yes, as a focal point. No bottlenecks. These are like, I would say, two important principles. And finally, citizen rights. So citizens, usually they come like afterthought, but it should be embedded to the data exchange. Like citizens must know why their data is being exchanged. They must be able to validate if there is a legal ground for this data exchange. Or maybe someone, a government official, just spying on my data, spying on me. So these four things: efficiency, governance and accountability, citizen rights, and resiliency. I think these are the four things that drive the need behind the seamless data exchange. So what you see here is one example how this transaction governance is happening with X-Road. In physical world, we have like documents that government authorities send to other authorities. They are being signed, stamped, date is put, and are then archived. And this all is happening because you need governance. You need, if something goes wrong, somebody starts a dispute, then you must have evidence. So this is what's happening in the physical world. Now, in the digital world, usually the data exchange is happening over web services, at least in the case of X-Road. And you need the similar robust methods for this transaction governance. So, and here is a comparison, like physical world, digital world. In both cases, you need authentication of the sender-receiver. You need some authentication of this organization. You need date. You need secure delivery channel. In the physical world, it's postal service. Usually governments have their secure postal service. In the digital world, the X-Road creates these secure channels over the public internet. And archiving. So to be ready for the disputes. Just to show that the principles that this data exchange in the digital world is following, the principles are the same as in the physical world. Okay, so this is something that we are trying to showcase in Kenya, that you can build services on top of X-Road, and you can govern all this easily, and it scales. So, so basically, I'm going to show you the screenshots of the services that we implemented on top of X-Road, just to have something tangible to see how the X-Road works. So the value promise is for the end users is that X-Road helps to build seamless integrated public services with legal assurance and security assurance. So, so what we did is we implemented in the proof of concept 2 services, and I'm going to show one. This is like example of integrated service of childbirth, and currently a mother needs to basically go to different web pages in Kenya to fill out the PDF forms to register the child, to register the child in different databases or government databases. So, and this is definitely something that mother doesn't want to do after childbirth. So, so the benefit of the integrated service is that the mother basically doesn't have to do anything. The mother can just go and check that everything worked out as planned and the child is registered everywhere. So, like the use case is like in the hospital, notification of childbirth is sent to civil registry that contacts population registry where a unique identifier for the newborn child is created, and then child record is added to numerous different databases. And you might ask, what is the connection to X-Road? What is the connection to data exchange? So all these steps where data moves between these different registries, this is being done in this very way that we saw before. Each of these data exchange transaction is signed, timestamped, archived in the digital way. So it, if something went wrong, you are able to check what went wrong, and you are able to challenge this. And finally, mother can go to citizen portal and see like what is the outcome of this childbirth life event. So this is a UI of this childbirth interface that mother sees. So as you can see, like all this data is fetched from different registries: civil registry, population registry, health registry, National Health Insurance Fund. So it gives the transparency for the mother, what has happened, what data government holds about the child. And so mother is in control of her digital twin. I would use this nice term, digital twin. So every data that government has about mother and child is now like visible. Okay, and I'm not a sophisticated service pattern expert as Lawrence, but this was my understanding how this live event-based service could look like in Kenya. Okay, what are the principles that we follow from GovStack playbook? Reuse. So all the organizations in government reuse the same data exchange pattern that provides these benefits of nice security and legal assurance. And of course, it enables reuse of data. It enables all these other principles. That it's scalable. Thanks to distributed architecture, scalability is, I would say, a bit higher than in case of centralized architecture. Openness. Dexroad uses open standards, open source, and open data. Once only principle, so it helps to deliver citizen-centric services. Citizens do not have to insert the same data twice. Security and privacy, it's a paramount for all building blocks. And since the data exchange in case of X-Road happens over public internet, which creates a lot of vulnerabilities, then this is important. And we saw some glimpse of citizen privacy, like mother can have overview of her digital twin. There are definitely more, like data access tracking, like consent management, for example. Finally, transparency, accountability. We talked a lot about these things. Like, it's not just the end user side, it's also the back office side, the accountability and governance. So, with this, I will finish for now. And I hope that data exchange is not boring anymore.
I think, thank you, Davi, this very, I would say, definitely not boring insights into sometimes super complex, super technical building blocks, such as the information mediator within GovStack that we always underline is the core foundational building block, even though it might seem a super expensive, super complex, but thank you for making it actually a very lively and I think easily understandable also for the non-technical audience that we are acting more often. I would now actually leave the questions to Davi a bit later stage, but I would welcome Riho, who will walk us through something that I think is not so unique in Kenya, but a universal challenge whenever our service designers or technical experts start the journey within a country, and that is how you come to terms with the existing legacy systems. And this is something that Riho, who has been working now for how long in Kenya?
With these projects for more than a half year. Initially, this design even started a year ago, but ADMS General, I think, about 2 years now.
So, 2 years in Kenya with a specific task of looking at 3 very specific, daily usable, popular services, and what it meant like to merge those legacy systems with the GovStack principles that was one of the core tasks of this exercise. So Riho, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you, and hello to everybody. Couple of words. So ADM is an agency who is like servicing both public sector and private sector clients, and we are trying to merge the experience what we get from both disciplines. And maybe a little bit also background in terms of like Estonia. Estonia, when we got back our independence, we didn't have huge governmental budgets to build different solutions or use enterprise solutions, so we had to be smart and how to use different open source solutions and how to use them wisely so the budgets would be kind of as effective as possible. So this is kind of the background, and also why I like this kind of like GovStack principles in terms of like to build a community around this kind of service offering. But what I'm going to talk about when Taavi was talking about the proof of concept in terms of like how to build a data interoperability layer, which sounds huge. You want to have like a centralized system which interconnects all the governmental institutions. Sometimes this might be too huge of a chunk to start working on. So how to start piece by piece. Right now in Kenya, together with ESTEV and the European Union and GIZ, using GovStack principles, since last year there's been going on a project where we are using GovStack principles to pilot 3 services in Kenya. So first one is civil registration service of Kenya to digitalize the process of birth registration. The second one is the Nairobi city county to digitalize the process how different students can register to different courses. And the third one is WESA fund, which is a loan, which is a micro loan like development fund. And for them, we are doing this kind of like loan application management. The whole of the project, of course, it starts from this kind of discovery phase, governance and training, user-centric service design, and UA design. Those are the parts where we kind of got to understand what actually is needed, what is currently there, and what should be there. And there is the part what Lawrence was talking about. The different service patterns helped the teams to analyze what needs to be done. In the end, there will be this kind of like solution development for this kind of application. So basically, when we look at the proof of concept, what Taavi was showing about CRSR, about how to use X-Road, to how to connect all the different services, then I quickly jump a little bit forward. Then in the real life, the world can be quite messy. There are already different legacy systems which are in place. Then there are different external systems which need to be connected. Third kind of systems, e-citizens, where the citizens are used to interact with the government, and different kind of platforms and capabilities and how users can interact with the government. And currently there is no this kind of centralized interoperability layer as X-Road present. So how to get this thing to work? In the end, kind of from our analysis, we want that it looks something like that the user can go to their citizen portal, see what kind of births have been registered. There is a solution how doctors or midwives or whoever is registering the birth can register the birth, and how this is done in this kind of secure way when there is no this kind of centralized identification management and centralized data interoperability layer. Because like it's nice if we have this kind of centralized systems there, but if we don't have, then actually what we discovered, one of the like biggest, I would say, inefficiency elements of this process was that right now the childbirth is documented on paper somewhere in the hospital. And in Kenya, there are like thousands of locations where those kinds of information is entered. And if this all the paper comes to a single point or somewhere where it needs to be entered, then it takes time, mistakes can happen, how to get this data to the citizens then, how the citizens would know the status of it, and how to get to the state where you kind of, in the end, you can print out or have this birth certificate. So how to make this more faster. And then actually we launched, we just took this element of the project, of the whole ecosystem. So that's the way how to start to build it like block by block. And to use this, to build this, we started to use this kind of like GovStack principles. So a little bit more about the context and background. Throughout kind of the life cycle of IT system, there are like different stages. And through those stages, there are different systems which will stay in place. So there will be a lot of legacy systems, which means kind of like if you want to do everything from zero, it might be a huge project. So possibly for a lot of governments or organizations, it's not possible to modernize everything at once. So you need to start doing by like block by block. And on the side, the same service which is there already needs to stay online and needs to work. So these were this kind of like background. So in the beginning, of course, we need to design this like the system with the users, and the users were the doctors and the officials in the hospitals, the mothers who were giving birth, and the fathers as well, and as well the government officials who needed to have the data. So we needed to understand what they are doing, how they're doing it right now, and what are the like quick wins which what we can deliver from there. So design, understand the ecosystem, design for everyone, using different open source systems so that we can expand on those, build an API-first architecture so that we can extend the systems as per GovStack principles, and to build this kind of reusable content or like component library so that not only for this project, but any future projects in this organization, they can use it. In the first phase, as I said, so GovStack aligned as is and to be analysis. Lawrence was showing the patterns, like the different like processes, like how it is now, how it should be, and from there, kind of organization can define. So what is the element, what we should digitalize first, and what's kind of what's the capability, what we can manage. And based on this analysis, kind of using the GovStack principles for user interaction, like solution was designed. Wow. So, but to launch these kinds of projects in the Silver registration service, kind of actually multiple projects had to be kind of launched in parallel. So we were as an external partner. There were like different internal teams started to develop, and also external partners had to start developing. And we initially focused only on this on the end user interaction layer, because this will give the visibility to everybody involved to understand, okay, what are we going to build? Because like in the beginning, in our project, we just like concentrated, okay, we have the analysis, we have design, we have UX, so let's build this kind of front-end solution with what the users can really use and test out. By users, I mean kind of the doctors and the officials from the Kenyan sides, so that they can use. But inside, actually, the organization, there are multiple different projects were launched, like one project to update the core, different projects to start building the service which can gather data around across Kenya for the birth registration. So multiple projects were launched at the same time. And here we were using the GovStack principles in terms of that it's API ready, it's secure, it's modular. So what did the GovStack kind of principles enabled us to do? So The different teams were able to advance in parallel. So the internal teams were working at the core. We were working together with Kenyan CRS authority on the front end side. Then now we have gone into this phase where the different teams are integrating the solutions. The same platform what we developed will be handed over. The component library from the front end will be handed over to the e-citizen portal, so they can start using the same building blocks what we used to update their service to incorporate our kind of elements what we did. So it's kind of it enabled, first of all, faster to everybody to understand like what needs to be built. Okay, what should be the components? Where can we use those different components? And kind of this helped us. So basically, when we could do everything from zero, then those like general interoperability layers would be really good to implement. But in real life, we need to do it block by block. And this is like one solution where also GovStack can help to take one piece and to kind of modernize it. So start from the analyze, design, front end. The same front end can be used for legacy systems in future and for the new system. And when you upgrade it, then you can move towards the single state, or how Tavi was saying, like the one government and one government solution for the citizen. But let's go even smaller. So how to start laying your foundation and how to use GovStack there. So we had those two other services. There was Nairobi County School, or like vocational school course registration, and the Ways of Fund loan application. So for this also we had the same analysis done as is to be to understand what's there. But here we started to use like open source technology, a Drupal CMS. We applied GovStack principles, so basically we decoupled it using like this kind of API ready front-end technology, which is like secure CMS here, and added some additional kind of functionality into our ecosystem, which can in future be adding like different additional kind of GovStack building blocks. Because like kind of for us in those projects, the goal was to launch the service so that the organizations can start using kind of at least one digitalized service in the organization. For that, we built this kind of like ecosystem, but we build it in a way that now when they learn how to use GovStack, they can start adding additional blocks on their own with their local partners or, I don't know, partners from the GovStack marketplace who know how to use it. This is basically kind of, this is how we built up this kind of minimal viable backbone to start using GovStack there, and we used the same rules. And that's how we got like this kind of a portal, website, information portal. It has different kind of solutions, like a service, how to manage the portfolio of services, how to get applications or forms in from the citizens, how to kind of process them, how to collect revenue. In Kenya and in a lot of African countries, there isn't like centralized ID system or digital identity, so a lot of identities or like authentication is connected to your mobile number or your mobile phone, so we added this kind of SMS-based and mobile-based authentication methods, and in a way so that you can be modular to add future building blocks in the future. And actually, thanks to the same GovStack principles, we were able within the project, as initially kind of we saw that the budgets might not be sufficient to kind of do full services. Actually, thanks to the principles, when we built the system for Nairobi County, the same system we were able to kind of clone, adapt, and put it for this Ways of Fund. So remember, this service is to register for training courses and to pay for the training courses and to manage this. And the other service seems like totally different. It's how to manage loan applications in kind of local communities to understand who is applying for the loans. Are they the kind of the correct people who should get it? But kind of the IT system and the building blocks underneath those two things are the same. So that's how this kind of like principles of different like service patterns, different building blocks, and different elements in the system can be used in GovStack. So yeah, like to summarize my kind of 50 minutes is sometimes the projects might seem huge. No worries. Probably we'll find some piece in the legacy system, how to upgrade it, and possibly to upgrade it with GovStack principles, so that in future you can start using additional building blocks from the ecosystem. And even if you don't have a legacy system or a base foundation, what you can do is use this kind of like, as I said, this minimal viable foundation, like use some open source technology, build it in a way so that you can start using the building blocks in future. That's a quick run on the 3 Kenyan projects. They are I would say, in the last stages of development and will be live by the end of summer. So invite you all to look at them then. Yep.
Thank you, Riho. They were very, yes, I think he deserves it. I would now actually take the opportunity to ask Lawrence and David to join us on the stage for some 10-minute, 12-ish minute interaction or a brief summary discussion, for which I very much invite everybody to join in for questions and comments and feedback. But first of all, I wanted to thank all the speakers for very practical insights into what at first sight, a highly theoretical concept such as GovStack looks like as being put into practice. As I said earlier, SDEV, as the development aid or development collaboration entity of Estonia, does not have a very long-standing experience in running digital projects in Africa or in other parts of the world, so we're pretty much learning on the go. And for us, this has been the opportunities to put GovStack framework into practice for actually building digital services of very practical nature that everybody can understand and use on a daily basis. So from that perspective, I hope that this workshop served its purpose of showcasing not just something which looks nice on paper and in theory, but can actually be put into practice. But I would first like to take the opportunity to ask a few questions on my behalf. GovStack has been fundamentally, at least, discussed a lot from the point of view of architectural design. However, recently we've seen that there is an increasing interest into the policy framework, into the legal aspects that exist within countries. And the questions rise but how these beautiful tools and principles that you advocate are in line with our policy design principles and our existing policy frameworks. This is a question to all of you. Have you come across such challenges and how the policy design and technical implementation come together, or are they something that cannot be combined at all? Riho, can we start from you?
Actually, I would divert this question really to Taavi, because like Taavi is like on this like general interoperability layer. This is like even like bigger challenge, and I'll get to the point. I'll answer your question in our project as well, but maybe Taavi can first on this kind of bigger scale explain it.
Yeah, as part of this proof of concept of data exchange, we also created interoperability framework that describes the principles of collaboration between the government agencies, and it covers the legal layer, like what is a regulation of data in transit. Then it covers also organizational processes layer, so business processes, how organizations can align these processes to work together. Semantic layer, how organizations understand the data that they are exchanging, what is the meaning of it. And the technical layer, X-Road, that we already discussed. And on top of that, of course, the governance of this all that we covered, I think, quite heavily. So we are trying to build digital governments that are based on the rule of law. And so everything that we do is basically law-based and must be lawful. So this answers, I believe, this question, like that the policy and technology, they are connected.
But in the real world, there are like thousands of births being like been born in Kenya right now, and there's like a lot of paperwork which is done right now. And in Kenya, this kind of the policies are being drawn and are being agreed, and the technology to have the different government organizations to interact with each other digitally has been kind of set up and implemented. But there are organizations who want to solve their problems right now, and for those 3 cases, actually, kind of, I would say, we didn't need this kind of policy to be able to implement GovStack, because as there wasn't this interoperability layer. We looked what kind of policies do those organizations have, what do the policies have with whom we need to kind of communicate, and what kind of integration layer there is there, and we added this kind of like additional security layer to the communication of those like 2 kind of systems which needed to kind of communicate. So kind of our insight from our experience from this project is like sometimes it's not worth waiting for the whole big systems to be set up and policies, but let's start to do something to make the work better and the government faster for the citizens.
Lawrence, is something that you would like to add on this, or have you come across even such a challenge at all?
Yeah, so I don't, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in policy at all, but I hear this a lot, that prototyping is also a tool for policy. I tried to mention that in the presentation as much as possible. So having access to these resources is a way to test ideas before you, move too far forward as well.
Do we have anybody actually from Kenya in the audience? Very good. So these are the end users, right? Whatever we've been discussing, these people are in the position to actually reflect upon. Have any of you been directly in contact with any of those initiatives that Riho was discussing in detail? I would very much actually like to hear from you is that the actual outcome of these projects, how much it met your expectations and how much it actually delivered what was expected from you as the product owners or service owners at the end of the day. Would you like to share some views or your feedback on it?
Thank you. Aninjau is my name, and I'm glad that you've given us an opportunity as the end users of the services that we are talking about. 2 things. First, to confirm that indeed the services are almost at the tail end, and I'm glad that, as Riho said, that probably by summer we shall be talking about and celebrating their launch and going live. I work for Uwezo Fund, one of the 3rd service that ADM is helping us digitalize. And one of the things that we have appreciated along the way is the way we and the Estonian companies have been able to come together and co-create the end product that we have, so that at the end of the day, they have not brought for us a solution that is Estonian, but they have stayed with us and worked towards co-creating a solution that is going to work for us. And we can't really wait to have that product work. We also appreciate what Tavi is bringing on board, the issue of data exchange. And we are one of an organization that used to make our users provide a lot of repeated data and provide even some data that we probably, through X-Roads, would be able to fetch from other government repository databases. And so this is one of the areas that is indeed changing the way we are able to provide services to the citizenry. So thank you, Estonia. Thank you, ADM, and thank you, the whole team. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback. Any other from the Kenyan delegation that would like to add on this? And feel free to criticize as well. It's not just saying that everybody and everything went super well and super smoothly. I'm sure there were obstacles. I'm sure things didn't work out as planned. I see, yes, Marcos, you're the next.
Thanks so much. My name is Wilson Gakuya from the Nairobi County government, the local government in Kenya. And I have been working together with the ADM teams in terms of development an application for the vocational training centers. One thing we must appreciate that the current setup has been largely a manual process. Like within the county, there are 11 institutions, but these are somehow have been operating in silos. And through the support of the Estonian government, I've been able to come up with an application. And as my colleague has just pointed out, is a co-creation, is a product that we can still incorporate the local situation and the setups. One thing we are so much excited that maybe by the end of July we'll be able to launch the products. And of course, as well pointed out by Riho, in terms of scalability, it's there because as he has mentioned about maybe funds limitations, we cannot pick it from there and maybe able to partner with other entities so that we can be able to expand and scale up the application to be usable to even to the larger institutions that are not only from the county, but you can still extend to other counties or other local governments. We do appreciate the support that we have been enjoying, and we look forward to even a greater collaboration. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I know that Marcos is now in line.
Thank you and congratulations. Question to Riho. You mentioned that you chose Drupal platform for the kind of front end and modularity and so on, but just what was the rationale behind it that for example, why didn't you choose Typo 3 or anything like this? Like why Drupal?
So basically, like Typo 3 is more, I would say, the DACH region and German-based. So one reason for Drupal actually was that Estonian government portals are using Drupal. In UK, we are using Drupal, and for example, together with our partner Public Plan in Germany, we are also using Drupal as a base platform for the North Rhine-Westphalia governmental portal. So we had this kind of experience, and we had already the modules, some of the modules there, and it was kind of step from there to use this kind of technology and then to apply the GovStack principles to take it a little bit apart, to make it more modular and to start using. But basically, whoever wants to start laying the foundation, it can be Drupal or any other kind of, I would say, open source technology, which can be kind of built as an API-first kind of solution.
Thank you. Yes, wait, please.
Thank you. I have a question. Kenyan's privacy law is basically European GDPR. Did you happen face some kind of cases around of that data interoperability was expecting to be implemented different way than the current X-Road implementation what you have for Kenya? Thank you.
So Kenya is in the process of selecting the way how they solve interoperability. And the goal of this proof of concept was to show what is available out of the box from Estonia, basically, and from European Union, I mean. We didn't do this compliance analysis with Kenyan law, and there can be things that could be changed if they choose to go with the X road, which is not certain yet. So, did I answer your question?
Yes, but do you see that before this type of project shall start, you need to know what are the legal requirements for this type of systems? Because from the privacy law angle, in Kenyan context, consent, giving the consent and revoking the consent are also important, like in Europe. Europe is tackling with that every day. Same with Estonia. We don't have it implemented as the GDPR expects today, but same in Kenya. So do you see that the model, the technology which was implemented as a best practices from the GovStack fits to the GDPR, considering that Kenyan GDPR is exactly the same?
I must be honest with you that I'm not familiar with GovStack consent specification.
But I can say that it applies in terms of that that's the same as in Estonia. Everybody can see what kind of access, what kind of data is accessed by what kind of government officials, and you can basically restrict access to different government institutions if needed. So GovStack, in terms of gives those kind of building blocks, and using those building blocks, the government can set up this kind of service. So to be able to enable this kind of where my data is going, who is my data using, I need to take away the consent. This is something what kind of the local or the government which is applying this needs to then also implement as a service, basically. But for this kind of implementation, what we were doing, we were basically using the same practices what they are doing right now on paper. We are just digitalizing it. But I think to your question, it's yes, this consent management, to have the data interoperability, GovStack has the principle of being transparency, and to be transparent, you need to show this to the citizens, how the data has been used.
We can take one more question, but then I'm afraid we're being kicked out of this room. But yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I had two questions, but then I have only one, and
you can squeeze them in if
hopefully
you can.
It's a simpler one. That during the process of selecting candidates for e-services, the first one we saw you picked the registration of birth for Kenyan mother. Did you ask also the question that why Kenyan mother needs GovStack, citizen portal, authentication, SMS? What's the outcome of registering birth for Kenyan mothers?
Yes, we did, and I think there is a lady in the room who can answer why is it important to make this process faster? Why is it important for the citizens to get this birth certificate in the end, and how this helps the Kenyan mothers and children?
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Nevi Nyanaro. I work for Civil Registration Services. We register events of births and deaths. And normally the way we are doing our processes, they are manual processes. So what they do, we have a paper where the mother fills the manual paper. Then this paper is carried to our offices for this mother to come later to get a birth certificate. But what ADM is doing, we thank you for your collaboration with the Estonia government. They've come to digitize, to automate the service. So what they're coming up with an app where the mother will be registering this birth, which will be on a gadget, and this gadget will be registering the birth, and the birth will go directly to our offices. So the mother doesn't need to come all the way to get the birth certificate. Then later, it will be downloaded on the eCitizen platform, which will save time and the cost also. And we find in Kenya, we have a diverse culture. We find some locations, they are interior, where you find after this birth is registered, they take a long time to bring it to our offices. So if it's digitized and it goes real time, it saves a lot of time and it will really add value to the citizens.
Yes, thank you.
Was that comprehensive? Makes sense. I'm asking, was it the answer that you're looking for? Good. I'm afraid that the numbers are red here next to me, which means that I must wrap up. First of all, I wanted to pass massive thanks to my fellow speakers on the stage. I want to thank the team in Kenya in particular for being part of the journey and being hugely helpful and supportive in taking this not so easy path forward, but your support and availability has been a huge benefit throughout the journey, and we are looking very much forward to continuing, because as we know already from our upcoming initiative, there's a huge interest into what has been put in place in Kenya, how it worked, why it worked, and how we can extend these experiences and lessons learned also to other countries in Africa. So that's it from us today. I think that was a slightly different glimpse of what GovStack, how it works on a very country level, on a very service level, also on a very technical level. But we definitely continue this journey in our upcoming initiatives. We have very interesting projects in the pipeline, incorporating very exciting countries in Africa, so stay tuned for more. I hope to be back next year at the same time with more use cases, more practical examples of how Germany, Estonia, European Union, and the governments of the African countries have actually collaborated in building the future-proof digital services that bring the most of benefits to the actual end users, be it the new mothers or other parts of the society. So thank you for your time, thank you for being with us, and have fun on the rest of the conference.